Hey, welcome to a bonus episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patrons Austin Kress and Brittany Grable. My name's Matt Enlow.
And I'm Oren Kaplan, and today we are talking to Alrik Bursell and Liz Manischel, our good friends and hosts of the podcast Making Movies is Hard. They had some cool things to talk about, and I think this conversation really ended up being like much more reflective about who we are as filmmakers / podcasters and what we think about everything. But it was kind of a good talk. If you ever heard our conversation with Alrik and Tim, his old co-host, then this might be kind of bringing back some memories.
Yeah, this is, I think, an episode for people who have been following the show for a long time and who are maybe curious about what Liz and Alrik are up to. You know, they both have a ton of things going on. Liz has a movie that she's just about to kick off distribution on. Alrik is about to go into production on his film that he's been working on and dreaming of for the last 5 years. So it's a really fun conversation to talk with some old friends with shared history about what they are endeavoring to do next. So yeah, we thought this one would be fun. Alrik has a crowdfunding campaign going right now, and so we thought, let's get this episode up and out rather than crowding our schedule or moving things around too much. So if you want to learn more about his crowdfunding campaign, you can go to seedandspark.com/fund/thealternate. Once again, that's seedandspark.com/fund/thealternate if you want to support Alrik in the movie that he's making. Or you can check out Speed of Life, Liz's new movie, wherever you find movies.
Yeah. And so before we hop into our chat with them, we want to remind you real quick that we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/justshootitpod. It's a place you can give us a few bucks a month if you like the podcast, if you feel like you're getting anything out of it, if it's a learning experience, even if it's a place where you learn what not to do based on Matt and my advice, then it's helpful. And also all our patrons get into our live events for free. And we're having a live event very soon. So it'll probably be already over by the time this episode comes out. But check it out, patreon.com/justshootitpod. Before we get to the rest of our show, we wanted to talk to Zach Lepofsky for a second. He's a filmmaker that created an app called Shot Lister, and he's with us right now. And we're going to talk a little bit about the app. One of the cool things about it is it lets you color code your shots throughout the day as you're shooting, red or green, to indicate what you've already finished and kind of give you a bird's eye view of the project. Can you tell us a little bit more about the color coding and why you think it's a helpful feature?
Yeah, I mean, basically when you build your shot list, you can then build sort of a shooting schedule where you put in all the shots you want to get in the order and how long you estimate each one's going to take. And hopefully that adds up to 12 hours if you're doing a 12-hour day or whatever. And then when you're actually shooting, it goes into something called live mode, where it knows what time it is. It knows how many shots you've actually done already, and it can add up for you all the shots that are left and say, geez, there's about 45 minutes more shots here than you have time to do. And it tells you you're 45 minutes behind. And when that's the case, the whole app glows red. And the crew can see that when it's in your hand. And
does it start beeping?
It doesn't beep. We've definitely been requested, can it glow yellow when we're just a little bit behind? Does it have to really go red? And often, 90% of the time it's glowing red. If anyone's been on set, they know.
Yeah. Is there like a shock collar accessory that you guys sell in case it's in the red for too long?
We've had a lot of requests for that, yeah, but unfortunately, PETA hasn't let us do that. But people start knowing. They say, "Are we in the green? Are we in the red?" And it can be really helpful because you can then readjust all the shots, and all your estimates based on how things have changed, and then get it back on schedule. So you can move the important stuff, up in the shot list, and maybe get rid of or combine shots that you actually realize you don't need, because often when you're shooting a scene, you realize you don't need that coverage, or a second unit can get those close-ups later. And then you can get the schedule back to green. Basically, usually you do that at lunch when you're in a mad panic. And then sync it with the whole crew and show them the new plan. So the color coding ends up being really helpful for that.
I have an idea for a feature. It's called time decoy mode, and it just always basically puts you half an hour behind so that you hopefully finish on time.
Well, you definitely don't want to let the crew know that you're an hour ahead of schedule, because then they all start relaxing.
That's really why you need the yellow mode. It's not for red. It's for when you're like green-ish, basically.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a healthy energy that comes from being in the red. It really kicks your butt. You don't want to be too calm.
That's awesome. I wanted to get it, but I can't afford it at this point. I was just wondering, is there like some free way that I could get it?
Yes. for any people out there, we're actually going to give away the app to anyone who emails justshootitpod@shotlister.com. We're giving away 50 codes a month, every month, forever. So if you need a free copy, just email justshootitpod@shotlister.com and we'll send you one.
So every month forever.
Yeah, as long as this podcast is listenable by human beings.
Well, that's arguable at this point anyways.
And Zach, what should listeners that want a free copy of Shotlister write to you in that email? Just a blank email?
They could put what platform they want, because we have Mac OS, iOS, Android. So let us know which one of those you want. And then, assuming we haven't given away 50 that month, we'll send you a free code. But then you can always email the month after that.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks so much. We are excited to check it out. And to our listeners, if you do get a free copy of it, please email us at justshootitpod@gmail.com and let us know what you think. And if you have any feature recommendations, let me know, and I will tell you how cool I think they are.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this podcast, even months from now, even years from now, email justshootitpod@shotlister.com for your free copy of Shotlister. Hey, everybody. It's the Just Shoot It, Making Movies is Hard crossover. I'm Matt Enlow.
I'm Warren Kaplan.
I'm Alrik Bursell.
And make some noise for Liz Manischel.
Woo!
Yay! That's me.
So we're super excited to talk to both of you guys, Liz and Alrik, today because you both have awesome projects that are pertinent to right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both have interesting things happening. Alrik, you're doing you're crowdfunding for The Alternate.
Right, for
the movie
Alternate.
That is what the Making Movies is Hard podcast is based upon.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the thing that's been so hard all these years.
Right, so this is like when we started the podcast, we were chronicling the making of our 2 feature films, and The Alternate was my feature that I'd been working on since the beginning. I thought I was going to shoot it within 2 years of the podcast. We're now almost 5 years into the podcast, and we're shooting it in December. So it actually is happening, which is fantastic,
That's amazing. I want to ask you, do you feel like, especially since you've had this podcast where we've talked to so many amazing filmmakers and crowdfunders and all the things it takes to make a movie, do you feel like you are better off making the movie now than you would have been 5 years ago?
Yeah, I didn't even know what I was doing. I thought I knew what I was doing, in the beginning of this podcast. And I thought I was ready to make my feature right away, but I had no real concept of how to be prepared, how to develop the story. I just had a script, and I was like, yes, I have a script. Now everyone will give me money, and I'll go make my movie, and it'll be great, And I didn't I don't think I had a deck for a while. I think it was a year or 2 before I had my first pitch deck, and it was very bad in the beginning. It took me 3 years to get a decent looking pitch deck,
Can I ask you what 3 3 takeaways from the podcast that have changed the way you think about making your first feature film?
I think and this is one of the things that I actually had from the beginning was a story that you believe in, to really know that you want to tell the story that you have, that the script that you've written and that you've been working on is actually worth making into a movie for yourself, that you could stick with it for 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, whatever.
Yeah, I actually think that was the very first question you had posed. I think you asked it on our show, but I think you've kind of talked to everyone about it, which is
right.
How do you know?
How do you know if? Liz, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on because you've made 3 movies now.
I think 2. I think
2.
Alrik and Tim asked me that question when I was on their show as a guest. And I said the opposite. I said, just as long as you have a script, just make whatever you have, because it's going to take so long to put something together that you're going to waste years of your life making it perfect. I'm so sorry, because now
Just
I sound like an
it.
asshole.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I said on the show, or that's what I probably would have said.
Well, I think, Alrik, you're probably kind of a happy medium between those 2 ideas, though. It's not that you think The Alternate is perfect and is going to be this immaculate movie, but you just needed a little more runway before you tore the Band-Aid off.
Well, I think it was figuring out the steps I needed to take and what I would need to get the movie made, and at the level that I wanted to make it. And also just really having an idea that you're going to stand by over the years and still be excited to make, because as we all know as writers and filmmakers, like you can get really sick of an idea really quickly. You like start writing it, and before you even finish, you're like tired of it, you know?
I'm on day 3 of a project, and I'm like, what's the point?
Right. But I mean, I think to have been working on it for so long and still be really excited about it and still get really thrilled like every day to work on the movie and be like, you know, I have all these ideas of how I want to shoot it, and you know, all the shots are in my head, and they have been for a long time, and it still just gets me like juiced to like talk about the movie, pitch the movie, and to go make it. And so I think that's like the best thing about the project, to be honest, is that I still have this deep passion for it. Whereas like a lot of other things, like I could have really just, you know, I'd be like hating working on 5 years later, you know.
Okay, so I asked you for 3 things you learned from the podcast, and so
that
far
was
you gave us
one.
one that you already knew before you started the podcast.
Well, I didn't know. I happened to have it when I started. Like I already loved the idea, and then like it's been like I've proven to myself over 5 years that I still love it. The second thing is not rushing, you know, and not thinking that you have to make the movie right away, and just really taking the time to build it up forever, like, well, not forever, but like build it up and be ready to shoot it, you know, because I wanted to make this thing years ago, but it just wasn't the time, and now is the time. And you know, I've been, after 5 years, it's like, you know, there's nothing else I would gain by waiting another like year or two. I don't think, like raising more money, like I don't think there's any more money to raise for it besides what I have for my budget. So I think, you know, just taking the time to make sure it's ripe, and then like, you know, picking the fruit when it's like hanging from the vine. And then the last thing, I guess, would be realizing that if you just wait, this is kind of contradicting number 2. If you wait forever, you could be waiting forever. And that at some point you just have to take it upon yourself to push it forward however you can.
Well, that's the Liz advice, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you learned that
funny.
from her on that episode.
Well, partly. And I mean, every time I ask her about my movie, that's what she says, is like, just set dates, just make it. That's like the advice she's giving me for like 2 years, ever since I met her, basically.
Yeah.
And I did that. And that's like, I set dates for October. We pushed 1 month to, you know, what was late October. We pushed 1 month to early December. And so now we're going to make the movie in December. And I mean, unless we have like a cataclysmic disaster, like, you know,
Like rolling blackouts or fire.
well,
Or
I was thinking more on
impeachment.
a
That is poor taste. I apologize.
more
That's
like
not
a
good
smaller
joke.
level one,
Impeachment. Inquiries.
like the crowdfunding failing, basically.
Right,
Like not getting greenlit for the crowdfunding. I think that would be the thing that would derail us. But aside from that, we're gonna make a movie in December,
And
it
what-
might not, you know,
So at this point, you guys are 30% in. What's your total number that you're trying to raise right now?
$25,000. So we've just crossed 8,000. So we have 8,200
Fantastic.
secured.
And what's the URL again?
It is seedandspark.com/fund/the alternate.
/the alternate.
So go there right now, watch the video, check out all the updates. We've been
Do I
doing
have
lots
to watch
of
the
video
video? I already
updates.
watched it. I'm just going to make a
You don't
pledge
have to
right
watch
now.
the video. Oh, you're going to make the pledge
Yeah.
right now on the show? Oren.
I'm giving
oh
you
my
$100.
Man.
Oh.
You are my hero, man.
That's so
Oh,
nice.
This is
$100.
Like,
wow.
Bitcoin, right?
That's amazing. Jeez, generous.
At this point, I'd love to bring up patreon.com/judgefruitipod.
Wait, do I have to make an account?
Yes, you do.
God.
It's
Okay.
not that
Oh,
hard.
man.
Let's see
my
if I
dad
can finish
do it.
making an
You can
account
do
by
it.
the
Oh,
end
you
of this
can check
podcast.
out as a guest, I think.
You can,
actually.
yeah, you can do it as a guest too.
Oh, continue
Yeah.
with Facebook? Should I do it with Facebook?
You could.
Okay.
And then,
all right.
and then
Are
you
they
can
gonna
post
spam
about
me?
it. No.
Liz,
Yeah.
Liz, tell
Oh,
us
this
where
is a
you
mistake.
are. So you made a film called Bread and Butter. It's really great. I think the lead actress is especially good.
Yeah, she's a hero.
She's my favorite person. And then you made a second movie
Yep.
called Speed of Life. You guys have just finished your festival tour, right? Like this is kind
We
of
have like 3 more to go, but we're
Gotcha.
tapering off, and we're releasing the film January 10th, 2020, which is the 4-year anniversary of David Bowie's death, because the film
Oh,
is
perfect.
inspired by his death.
yeah.
Apologize to hear about David Bowie, but can I ask real quick, is this, can I write this off like as a business expense?
I don't think you can actually.
It's entertainment related.
Yeah,
like-
you can.
Oh,
I
maybe,
mean,
yeah,
I'm
maybe,
doing it
yeah,
on a
yeah.
live
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, you can
Ooh,
definitely
that's a good
write it
point.
off.
Ooh, content marketing. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you could.
Do you
Okay,
write
credit
out
card
other
number.
podcasts?
So make it
One, two,
$500, right? You know.
Yeah.
Save this credit card? No, I don't. I'm not gonna save it. It's a one-time thing, Alrik.
You're not gonna re-up when we need you really bad in 10 days, 12 days from now.
I feel like Oren just donating is like our cutaway. Like we're at the telethon and we're cutting to the phone banks, and Oren's
Right.
like, "I'm
And I'm
still
like-
figuring it out."
Wait, do I?
Oh, your pledge just came through. Wow.
It's a little
Yay.
dark in here. I need to look at
Oh
my
my
credit card
gosh.
numbers.
Wait, what year was I
Amazing.
born? I'm not answering that question. You're gonna know how old I am. What ethnicity?
Well, Oren,
skip.
thank you very much for the generous contribution. It just
we'll-
hit.
We'll check
great.
back in with Oren in a few minutes.
No, you don't
The
know
phone's
if
still
generous
ringing
yet.
off the
I'm not
hook.
browsing more projects, Eden Spark. This is very unlike me. Some Girl Scout asked if I could help the other day, and I ran away as fast as I could. So
Well,
It's
the,
very
the
unlike
brutal
me,
truth-
Alrik.
I think.
Oh,
the,
wow.
The
Amazing.
Girl Scouts. That's true. Oren, you hate crowdfunding. This is incredible.
I do hate crowdfunding, but I
You
love good
hate it?
podcasts. I want to see if me contributing live on this podcast gets other people who are listening to be like,
Yeah.
Fuck
Be
it.
like
I'm
Oren.
doing it.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to put Oren in the portal, post it on Facebook and all that stuff. So you can be in the portal too if you contribute. So, you know, Liz is already in the portal.
I'm in the portal.
Which is amazing.
Join me in the portal.
There you go.
Exactly.
Come to the portal. But
Wait,
Liz,
Yeah.
sorry.
Wait, I know. I love
Speed of life.
self
Speed
promotion,
of
but
life.
can I actually flip the script just for a second?
Sure.
Because-
You're going to interrogate Oren on
Well-
why he hates crowdfunding.
No, I know there's no real plan for this recording, but like I'm chomping at the bit to ask everyone this question, and maybe you've already talked about it because I have not listened to the entire repertoire of Making Movies is Hard
What?
/ Just Shoot It.
How dare you?
it's only 482 episodes.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
What the hell's
easy.
wrong with you?
I just want to know because I'm like new to this world and like it's all very strange to me right now. Like why do we do this? Why do we podcast? Like why do each of you podcast?
Oh man, it's all ego. It's 100% ego.
Yeah, I mean, I've answered this
Wow.
like 1,000 times
I'm so
on the
sorry.
podcast, but I will say it again. Like for me, and I'm sure for you guys also, like when you start out as a filmmaker, like the joy of filmmaking is really about taking a camera, getting your friends together, shooting something, editing it, and showing it to people. And you do it. It's so like fun and addictive that you do it like every week, and you're editing, and you're shooting, and you're talking, you're writing, and you're pitching, and you're just always like putting stuff out into the world. And like the longer you work at this and the more professional you become and the more you get paid and the more people tell you, oh, don't use your own money on your movie, get someone else to pay it. Like the more it turns into like a business, the less you are like holding a camera in your hands and sending people links and asking people for notes. And the more you're like trying to attach cast or trying to get agencies involved, like all the like boring corporate stuff takes over and you're not actually making anything. And so when I met Matt and he wanted to do a podcast, and I was like already like a big fan of Script Notes, the screenwriting podcast, and a friend of ours, Eric Kissack, had said like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a Script Notes for directors? Like all those pieces coming together with the fact that we can just literally just talk for a couple hours a week about directing with other directors and then just put something out into the world. Like to me, literally it didn't matter if like anyone listened to it, as long as I knew I was like making something and putting it out into the world, because everything
so it's like
else
to
I
remind
do.
you of the joy of the storytelling, like the non-corporate side.
Yeah, it's less even
Yeah.
about the joy. It's more about like, there's this idea that you are what you do. Like you can say you're a writer, but if you don't spend any time writing, then you're not a writer. And you can, say that you're not a writer, but if all you do is write, even if nobody is buying your scripts or whatever, that you're still a writer. And so to me, like if you're a filmmaker, if you're a creative person in any way, and that's important to you, you need to make things and show them to people. And so the podcast is like a really easy thing for us to make without any worries. It's kind of like that every day, one a day, those projects people like decide to learn Photoshop, and every day they put out something into the world that they did with Photoshop that day, or Cinema 4D or photography or music or whatever it is.
Okay.
To me, that's like what the podcast is. It's like a creative outlet.
Also, I think that, both of our shows have really evolved over the last couple of years. And so we're always looking for ways to, try something new, meet different people. It's like a sandbox, and it's kind of like a good opportunity to stretch different muscles and things as well. Liz, I
Right.
think a lot of like the marketing know-how that I used to have back in my previous life at Comedy Central had kind of worn off. And like I realized this year that I was like, oh, like I don't know how to do, Facebook retargeting the way I used to. Like those tools have changed. So like things like getting better at audio editing, like thinking through like a marketing strategy, all of that stuff I think is like a fun practice for when it comes time to do some of the maybe less glamorous but equally exciting and fun and creative parts of filmmaking that are kind of on the back burner,
So these
that's
are practice
another thing
films.
as well.
Like the podcast
Yeah, a little
is
bit.
a practice film
Yeah.
for you too. That's super interesting. And then
But also,
Alrik, go on.
I will say that there would be no podcast without Matt, and like the fact that Alrik carried on making movies is hard without Timothy I was always like, in my mind, thinking like, how is he doing it? Like, how is he holding himself accountable to releasing an episode every week by himself when he's still has a wife and a job and you're a freelancer. It's not like you go to work from 9 to 5 and then you have all night and all weekend open. You're like chasing things just like we are.
Or even like a desk job where you can kind of like sneak a couple,
Right.
like in the same way that like Liz, you would always write over your lunch breaks, you know?
No longer, but yes.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I miss
Right.
those times.
Well, to answer Liz's question for me, it all started because I was looking for a directing podcast. Just like you guys, I listen to Script Notes religiously. I listened to every single Script Notes episode there was up until the point when I started my podcast. And I think I kept it up for like at least a year after that. So I wanted the director's Script Notes, and I looked for it, trying to find it to listen to it. And it didn't exist, or they were defunct, or they were camera-based, or it wasn't really like what I was looking for. So I figured that, maybe I should start one because it didn't really exist, and I wanted to learn and grow and like kind of have, create the resource for myself that I could learn from, like through having these conversations with Timothy, and I wasn't even sure if we were going to do it, but I just asked him one time and he said yes, and then within a week we were recording. And then it's so funny because your podcast and the Indie Film Hustle podcast and my podcast all came out within like 2 months of each other. So it's kind of insane that like we three didn't exist and then we all existed at the same time, basically. But and then why do I keep doing it? Just because I think part of it is ego.
Peer pressure.
You guys, like you said, it's like it is fun to have a podcast and to talk to people and to bring people on your show. But it's also the learning. Like I learn so much from every conversation that I have on the show. And I feel like, unlike that's kind of one of the reasons why Timothy quit, was he like stopped learning and stopped enjoying it. And I think it was because he knew that he was going to quit filmmaking. So like, why did he care how someone made their first feature if he was never going to make his first feature?
I am fond of the line of questioning from you, Alrik, that is so overtly just you trying to figure out your own specific challenges. Like it's almost like you're like, okay, so what if it was a movie
but you couldn't get the
about a
135
guy who
millimeter
goes through a portal? What would you do in that situation?
Exactly. I am pretty unabashedly just doing it for myself.
Well,
and
and
to learn.
I think that
okay.
that's the point of view of the podcast, and I think that's what's so fun about
You're
it.
providing a service
Right.
while you do it. Are we like these two podcasts and Indie Film Hustle? Are we like the fancy top directing podcasts? Like, are there others?
Yeah, there are
not
others. for
fancy.
sure.
There are others. I mean,
remove that word from the description.
Indie Film Hustle, he releases 3 to 4 episodes a week between all of his podcasts. So he has so many more episodes than we do because of that reason. So I think he has a lot more eyeballs on him than, at least definitely Making Movies is Hard. I know you guys are doing pretty well out there. You have lots of reviews.
Well,
so.
I know Nim Kroll has a great show.
Yeah, he's
Indie
great.
Mogul has a new podcast.
Right, Indie Mogul.
Lessons from a Screenplay has a podcast.
I mean, I love
there's
Respect
plenty
the
out there.
Process, but it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, me
much
too.
more, even more niche than our podcast. you know?
Right.
It's
But it's
about
really
commercials.
it's
commercial
a great
filmmaking.
podcast, though, and there's a lot of amazing tidbits in that one. I've been listening to Respect the Process a lot lately. That's a good one. But there's also like Film Riot, which I don't listen to, which apparently is really popular. Have you
Yeah.
guys heard of that? And
Yeah.
Film School.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Indie
pretend
Film
like it's
Grit.
us, though. I'm gonna.
That it's just us. Okay.
I'm just gonna do
yeah.
that. And then I was just thinking, like, I think the reason that I jumped on board is out of pure vindictiveness, because I think I get really angry at what I call like the chosen filmmakers and how they get like this leg up in society because of like one film that they made that broke out, or like they got into a grant organization or just something.
Yeah,
and
once they're on the
like
list, basically.
right?
Yeah,
or they got representation, and for some reason it just seems like their life is easier. And I think these podcasts are an opportunity to like lift up slightly less heard voices, perhaps, or out of spite. So like I think that's my reason for doing this, but I can't quite figure it out. I don't know.
Well, that's interesting, the reason. I like it. I'm glad that you said yes, whatever your reason is. It doesn't matter. That
Spite
you're doing
and
it with
ego.
me.
Spite and egos. And then
That's
listen.
fine.
Yeah, and I know
I'll
there's
take
like
it.
a way better conversation we should be having right now, but I just thought, why not? Why not take this opportunity to hear why we're all doing this?
I do think
Right.
that was kind of, harkening back to the first time we had a crossover episode, that was kind of a thing that we were trying to figure out for ourselves. I think we were all
Right.
like, it wasn't quite totally in focus the way it is now.
Yeah.
Man, I kind of want to talk about that first episode a little bit. I don't know if you guys feel open to that, but
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it afterwards offline a little bit, and how like it was kind of an emotional experience for Timothy and I to have that episode with you guys, because you pretty much called us out as like, real filmmakers are in Los Angeles. If you take your filmmaking seriously, you need to move to Los Angeles.
That is
And we were sort
totally not what we
That's
said.
not what you said.
But I could see how those are the undertones that you detect.
I will say, Oren, that I think we were both a little more hopped up than
I mean, we were
than
punchy.
you are remembering. Like,
sure.
there's stuff we cut out.
But Timothy
like-
came out of the gate and he was like kind of throwing some things about commercials and like the size of commercials that he produces, and that you guys don't work on those sizes of commercials. And I thought,
Yeah.
I was like, wow, Timothy, where did that come from?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
that was
were
funny.
matching
Yeah.
Timothy's like
Yeah.
edge.
Right.
Or you're misremembering. There was like we cut it out of the episode. I was like, well, this is insane. But you were like, had this weird like Trump jag. We were talking about like Trump doesn't care about anything. He gets to say whatever he wants, and maybe I should do
really?
that. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
It's
Yeah,
so
but
funny.
how is that related to telling them that they?
I'm saying you
need to
were
move to LA.
insane from minute one.
Well, here. But
I was
the
matching Timothy.
No,
But the
I'm
point-
saying
yeah.
you kicked off the conversation with like some insanity.
I feel like I'm gonna need
Well-
to go back to that garage band. file.
Go, dude.
Well-
help yourself, man. I'm
Okay.
telling you.
Guys, can you
My-
talk for amongst yourselves for 45 seconds?
my
while I
point
run
of
to-
bringing that up is that I feel like
My
I've
kid.
grown a lot as a filmmaker since that conversation, and my ideas of Los Angeles have changed quite a bit in that time.
Well,
Like I think I was
and-
a little, like hesitant about Los Angeles and like, no, Bay Area is just as important and just as good. And I think over that time I've realized like, well, yes, Bay Area is great and the indie filmmaking community here is awesome, but LA has a lot to offer, and it's not what I thought it was back when we had that first conversation.
It's not
Sure.
evil. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah, or
It's
like
not
or
evil.
phony baloney. I think is another
Right.
common sort of
Right.
expectation people have.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, like the similarities between our community and your community in Los Angeles are really, they're really
Sure.
similar. They're very
Yeah.
close. And the feeling and the love and the help that we give each other is very similar. You
Yeah,
know?
without a doubt.
I think there is this illusion that LA is like cutthroat in
Right.
a way that it's
Dog eat
actually
dog.
Not.
That's what we always say in the Bay
Not
Area.
in the
about
indie
you guys.
world.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but that's what we think, though. We think that anybody in Los Angeles is out there to like take our lunch from us.
Nah, man.
But that's not true. That's just
You-
not how it is.
You guys do 10-hour days. We do 12.
Right. Yeah,
Your
yeah.
time is, 20% more valuable than ours.
Right, right.
Can I say one other
sure.
cool thing that's cool about having a podcast?
Yeah, yeah.
Is
This is
So-
so good for our listeners. They,
They
I
love
hope
this.
I hope
right?
everybody decides to start a podcast.
well, no, I think this is relevant to all listeners. So you guys know that a lot of directors or filmmakers, they will like they'll take a bunch of photos on set and stuff and keep like a database of photos that they can release something like every week on Instagram or Facebook or something, just to
Oh.
remind people that they're making movies, they're
Right.
working,
Yeah.
that they're directors.
Self promotion.
Yeah, self-promotion.
Right.
And it's like at first, it seems like so lame, and you're like, oh, it's such posers. But then you realize like half the work that you get is from like posting your new reel on Facebook or posting something, and someone's like, "Oh, hey, I remember, I have this project, and I saw you posted this thing. It's kind of similar." So, to me, like, it's the heartbeat of reminding the world that you are a filmmaker, and like the podcast is something that helps us do that with actually like adding some value and not just posting a picture of you on a slate and like an actor jumping off a cliff or whatever.
By all means, everybody post those photos though; they're so fun.
Oh.
Liz, going back to the LA thing, right? Because you weren't a part of this insane throwdown.
But I think I was referenced because I only listen
fun.
to episodes that I am either referenced or I'm in, just in life.
Sure, of
and
course.
I think that Timothy used me as an example of someone who made essentially Bay Area content in LA. Is that right, Alrik, or am I missing?
I think that we probably definitely referenced you because we had you on our show and you guys had her Liz on your show. So I think that you definitely came up. I don't remember the context or why, but
if it had been phrased that way, I feel like I would have been like, "That's fucking bonkers." Actually,
and I'm probably misremembering because it was. I remember I was listening to it in the Austin airport after South by. I remember exactly that moment.
It's not a bad. I think it really speaks to what Alrik's point is that like the idea of saying like Indy versus Hollywood doesn't make sense so much because like it's like saying like LA is Hollywood and San Francisco is Indy, and like Liz, there are so many people just like you making movies exactly the way you're doing it here and in Austin and in San Francisco and all over the world, like
everywhere.
And so I think that, talk about growth and learning. I think that Oren and I have become a little more understanding and sympathetic to the people who are living in different markets. Like I think there's a lot of people who listen to the show who maybe for whatever reason can't make it out to LA or don't want to because they want to stay with their families in Georgia or
rent's just way too high.
Right. Yeah. The rumors are true. And so I think that we've kind of come to terms with the realities of like that there are plenty of opportunities everywhere. There are just more opportunities here. And so it's not as quite as hard aligned rule as it maybe used to be of like move out here. But if you want to make Marvel movies, you have to move out here.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you want movie making to be hard, then don't move here.
Well, I think if you're gonna, be an actor, I think you kind of have to move to Los Angeles or New York, right? Like those seems to be the places where actors get their work. But I don't know. I think there's a lot to be said for Los Angeles because there's so many resources and there's so many people in LA doing the thing that we're all doing. And, everybody's there to help and learn from each other just the way that it is in the Bay Area, which is what I thought that wasn't true. I just thought that everyone was out to stab each other in the back and, take the meeting from the other person or the connections or whatever. But that's just that's not my experience in Los Angeles so far.
Well, has that happened to Oren or Matt? Have you acknowledged that, has it not happened in LA?
The backstabbing?
Yeah.
Have we ever had our backstabbed?
Yeah.
Right. Have you ever had anyone like screw you over in some way so they could put themselves above you guys for a job or a situation or
I would
something?
say, anytime I can think of a circumstance where that sort of maybe has happened, that's not an individual. You know what I mean? That's like a person who
you can't
would
blame
screw
it on
you
the
over.
city.
Yeah, they would do that in New York. They'd do that in Paris. They'd do that in London, and those are the only places they'd live because they're rich snobs. But like for the most part, Los Angeles is a city filled with people who moved here because they love movies. They fell in love with the art that we all love, and stayed here after they learned that like it's super hard. And like you have to work for free for years and, give up and sacrifice tons and tons of different social opportunities and creature comforts that people have elsewhere. And they still stuck it out because they love making movies. So like, of course, those people are going to be generous. Of course, you're going to feel kinship with them,
But a lot of those things are true no matter where you do filmmaking. If you're doing it, you always have to make sacrifices. You always have to lose out on things. Of course.
But we moved here because somebody told us that this is where all the work is.
Right.
And we decided to, stick it out.
And by the way, I feel like more of the quote unquote backstabbing like at kind of the lower levels than at the higher levels. Like, and this, I wouldn't even call this backstabbing. I would just call it being clever. But I had two friends when I first moved to LA, and one of them told me that he got an interview with to be Todd Phillips' assistant. And he was very excited. It was at this building right by my house, so my apartment, so maybe we'd grab lunch afterwards. And I mentioned it to my roommate. And so she was like, hey, I would like to be Todd Phillips' assistant too. What building is it in? And she just like went there and was like, hey, I'm here for the interview to be Todd Phillips' assistant.
I mean, that's straight up backstabbing.
And they're like, you're not on the list. She's like, yeah, I was. They called me. They told me to come to this building. It's Todd, right? Doesn't need an assistant.
Did she get the job?
Neither of them got the job, but I guess in theory, if she got the job, that would be
a dick move.
Yeah,
but big time.
Kind of the biggest dick things I've seen are mostly unintentional, and they'd be like kind of involved with like people hearing a bunch of pitches and then like maybe lifting an idea from one pitch half the time, like not even realizing they're doing it, or like being at an audition and seeing like an actor improvises a funny line and then they use it, but they cast someone else. I've seen people treat
common.
actors like not really creative people, but more like business people, like kind of treat actors like they're a dime a dozen. And that is like always really bothered me. But I don't think that's an LA thing. I think people outside of LA probably perpetuate that stereotype even more. And then, of course, I've seen like racism and sexism and stuff, especially in casting and hiring.
But that's everywhere, though. I see that in casting and stuff in San Francisco jobs and shoots.
But the most dickhead moves I've ever seen are from like agents and managers, and I don't think that that's an LA thing. I think it's like business people versus creative people, and you just notice it more in LA because you pretty much can't be an agent or a manager like anywhere, but like a few very big markets.
Yeah, but I think like venture capitalists, I'm sure, act the same way, or like tech bros,
right? Of course, yeah.
Or Wall Street fuckheads, or whatever.
Oil tycoons.
Right.
Oil tycoons, great.
Yeah, farm ranchers.
Liz, have you ever been stabbed in the back or stabbed someone in the back here in Los Angeles? And do you think it's because of Hollywood's gruesome shadow casting darkness on your soul?
I was thinking like I've definitely interacted with a lot of. I was trying to think of the word. I mean, I guess it's poser, or it's like and definitely even brought them on board in formal ways to my projects without really even knowing what I was doing.
Hold on, imdb.com/
But just like I had someone who wanted to be a producer, and so they would make promises about attaching talent to my project, and he would just set up these meetings where the talent was very confused about everything, and you could tell that this guy just kind of like fell into the luck of convincing this actor to meet with anyone, and he was just like leveraging all these relationships in order to get into the PGA, and it was just and he was just super strange.
But he also set up all those meetings.
Yes, but they were
like
all
if you
had
sealed the deal,
yes,
you would be totally fine with it.
Yes, but these were actors who I reference this in the podcast with Alrik, but it's like the kind of like the Michael Madsen type actors. These are like the low hanging fruit actors.
And to clarify, when you say Michael Madsen type actors, that's code for they will do anything for X number of dollars, $10,000 a day or whatever it is.
Like Eric Roberts, who's in every independent film that's in a film festival ever.
Did I tell you about him?
No.
I don't know why this would be a secret, but he just auditioned for this commercial I shot.
Oh, nice.
He's
well,
like,
I'll do
it.
Was he good?
For $10,000.
Well, he was in was it Batman Begins or The Dark Knight?
It was one of those.
He was really good in that.
A million things. Yeah. No, we were like, why are you auditioning for this small commercial? And his manager's like, you like the script?
He wants to work.
Nice.
Yeah, he's got alimony.
Oh, that's funny.
But just to end up that point, I don't think that would have happened anywhere other than LA. I think LA is full of a lot of people who are really drawn to the luxury side of filmmaking, and they think that it still exists. I mean, I guess it exists for like the upper echelon. And so they want to become a producer. And so they do these kind of like leapfrogging, leveraging situations. And I don't like that. And I felt like that was a Los Angeles thing that happened.
Sure,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Like the
yeah.
glamour.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Soho House sort of vibe.
Yeah. I would still
Exactly.
say those are the people that are more interested in the business side than the creative side.
Yeah.
You know,
I guess so.
I just
Right.
started
They're
working with
suit.
this one producer who, like, I'd sent him my deck, and he like sent me some notes, and then I like made the changes and made some other changes, and it was like a 40-page deck, and like, you know, a half hour after I sent it to him, he sent me a note saying like, "Hey, why'd you change the language on this page? I kind of liked it before," and I was like, so impressed that he reread the entire deck. Like, it's so rare that producers, you know, just put in all that creative time and, you know, and into the details. And so I think that's like one of those things that you're pointing out, Liz, is like, there's just a lot of posers. They want to be filmmakers, but they don't care about film.
Yeah. I guess also, like, we grew up with posers. You know, like, you can always smell a poser. Like, and like sometimes it's tricky because they're offering you a thing that you need, and that can be seductive, or you know,
Right.
or maybe, you know, your spidey sense didn't tingle at that moment or something. But
Oh, I didn't know better. I didn't know anything. This was on bread and butter, and I like was just happy that anyone wanted to help me out whatsoever. And then now I know that like when you make a film, you're actually tending to something that's quite valuable, and I forget that because I'm just so indebted when I make a project to anyone who just wants to jump on board.
yeah, that makes complete sense.
So I kind of feel like Liz dodged the question when you asked her about her film Speed of Life, and that maybe you should talk about that film a little bit.
Yeah, and she didn't dodge it. I totally interrupted with like
Okay.
some tangential topic.
Well, yeah, we made a movie. It's been released. I don't know what to say other than like I'm in this moment right now where I'm very cranky and very confused because all I do, I work, you know, at an impact distribution company, and then
What is an impact distribution company, Liz?
it's like they get filmmakers pay them to build discussion guides and to create culture, policy, political, emotional change in an audience by building a screening tour.
I'm gonna pump the brakes. Yeah. So you like generate like cultural buzz based off of like.
Kind
off
of.
of a topic, like a zeitgeisty
So like
sort of topic, or give us the dumb version.
Yeah. So I'm working on a film called The Cave. It's a Nat Geo film. It's like one of the best films I've seen in years. Nat Geo is paying for us to give free screenings at colleges, universities, community centers, you know, whatever. And then at those places, at those screenings, we disseminate a discussion guide that's supposed to like inspire a really meaningful conversation between people in the room.
So it's like cause-based.
Yeah, it's cause-based,
marketing.
but it could also, and it's also like, you know, if a film is, you know, an environmental, it's a conservation film, then maybe there's a takeaway item that has to do with reusing. It's like a reusable straw at the screening. You know, we'll partner with a fulfillment house and they'll provide these straws for audience members so that we could create actual environmental change. So it's actually just like creative marketing for cause-based films. And it's super interesting. But like, my point is that like at Sundance, all I did was say, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And then I jumped ship at Sundance. I'm now at this new job and I'm touring with this film, and like no one's at my festival screenings. And like no one, like there were 10 people total at a screening, 2 screenings I went to recently.
Are you talking about Speed of Life screening?
Yeah. So I'm just like in this world where I see a potential for revenue for filmmakers in this very specific space that no one I know is in, the cause-based documentary world. And then I'm sitting, promoting my film, feeling like I don't know what the future is for sustainability for filmmakers. So I know you want me, the goal is for me to say something really nice about Speed of Life because I'm incredibly proud of it. But I think I'm in this cranky space where I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know how this film's going to turn out. I don't know how, as filmmakers, we're going to have a sustainable careers in the micro budget space. And like, I don't want to make conservation documentaries for the rest of my life. Like, that's not what I want to do. Anyway, sorry guys, it is 9 p.m. and it's 2 hours past my bedtime. So I've clearly gone off the deep end.
Well, but
crazier
you just
than
tell
Warren
us.
Kaplan on a Making Movies It's Hard crossover.
Is this
Hey,
what you
for the
rant
record,
about?
I really enjoyed that conversation. It just challenged me in a way that I needed at the time, and that's what I was trying to say.
Alrik,
about that
you guys had
conversation.
like a recap conversation
We
episode.
We did. We had a whole episode talking about our feelings about our episode.
And here we
Yeah,
are
I-
again, bringing it up, right?
I don't know if like I really enjoyed it is the accurate sentiment from you.
Well, but now thinking back upon it, it's like I think now where I am as a filmmaker is a completely different place, and I don't think I would be in that different place if I hadn't met you guys and I hadn't had that conversation. So it was really uncomfortable at the time, but I feel like where I am now is just such a better place because of that interaction.
Our
Well,
podcast
guys-
therapy, is that what I'm learning from like
Oh,
my
man.
diatribe?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Cathardcasts. But on that note of you feeling like you're a filmmaker at a different place in their career, and kind of Liz, you talking about not, the indie space and documentary space and kind of not knowing what the future is, especially like I think in terms of the viability of the business of like the indie film space. I think this might be a good segue to talking about a voicemail that we got from a listener
Yeah.
named Alrik Bursell.
Alrik.
Oh man, here we go.
That delves into, a little bit of the business side of the business. So let's listen to that voicemail right now.
Hey, Matt and Norton, this is Alrik. I am calling because I have an urgent question. Not that urgent, or I just wouldn't leave it on a voicemail. But you probably dealt with this question before, but I'm just wondering, is it better to have no manager or a not experienced manager? Because I have just got in contact with someone who wants to represent me. They have about 50 clients, but they're all kind of on the lower end of things. But they all make stuff. They're all people who do different things, write, direct, shoot, well, not shoot, I don't think. I think it's mostly writer, directors, producers, and actors. They're in things, but I wouldn't say they're well known. And I just kind of look, I don't have a manager. I've never had a manager. So I'm kind of looking at this like, hey, why not have a manager? Maybe they'll help me, maybe they won't, but at least it'll be a step in the right direction. But is that bad? Or is it better just to go it alone like I have been doing and, just do it that way? I mean, is there any big danger for having a manager? I mean, I don't really feel like it as long as I don't sign anything stupid, but, I don't know. What do you guys think? No manager or maybe not so good manager? What's better? All right. Thanks guys. Alrik Bursell, as you know, Twitter handle at AlrikB. And sorry for the stumble on the beginning of the call. All right, guys. Thanks for the great show, as always. Talk to you later.
So, Alrik, it sounds like you've got an offer from a manager.
Right.
You were just saying before that this person's most famous client is Tuvok from
Star Trek Voyager. Yeah.
Is
who's now a writer, director, and an actor, but he doesn't really want to act anymore. He's mostly writing and directing, or that's what his goals are.
Well, so that's a different deal. If he had a TV career and then pivoted, and then is he writing and directing things that we have heard of?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure his credits as a writer director are pretty meager, like short films and, small things or whatever. I might be wrong about that. I should double check right now just to be sure. But I'm pretty sure when I did my research, that was the deal. And then everybody else on her list was, like an unknown person who had done similar things to me, maybe a little bit more. But it didn't really seem like they weren't like people that we'd have heard of who are making movies that we, had heard of.
Yeah, I mean, I think that game is a complicated thing, right?
Wait,
Because
how did they find you? Did we hear that part?
No, so I met this manager on Slated like 4 years ago. And I've been pitching her the alternate, like, because she's also a film investor and does some financial. She has like connections to some finances and some financial people, and so I've been trying to get her to be an investor on the alternate since like 2016, and then, like I've been emailing her every year. We'll check in every year, but basically via email, and I'll give her the new deck and pitch her on the alternate, and she'll say, "Oh, let me get back to you," and then she never gets back to me. And then this year I did that, and she said, "I'm only gonna look at projects from clients that I manage." And then I was like, "Well, like, let me know."
Yeah, that's actually a little weird. Yeah, that's.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah.
that's a red flag.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So then,
Wait, you don't think that's like a cute way, a flirty way of saying I want to manage you?
I mean, maybe.
Yeah, that's the manipulative way of saying I want to manage you.
Yeah.
right?
I
well,
mean,
then
say,
So, so that started the conversation, and then we had a phone call. She kind of called me out of the blue,
Is
and
she
we just
based
talked.
in Los Angeles, or is she up
She's
north?
half time in Greece and half time in Los Angeles. So
And
I
this
think
is
that's
a manager,
another.
not an agent, right?
This is a manager, yeah, and she has clients who are writers and clients who are directors, and then some who do both. And then she also has actors on her roster too. And so part of what she was pitching me was like, I'll bring people together. So I have lots of scripts that need to be directed. So if you're on my roster, then I can like try to package you with this other writer, and then like maybe find some money from some of my financial connections, and we can make this short film together. And then blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean
that sort of thing.
That's what managers do, I guess. If you like them and it seems like they're getting other people work, that's one thing.
Right.
I will say this: I just parted ways with my manager, my longtime
really?
manager, and it was pretty hard, honestly. Like, it was a really tough decision and something that I had been mulling over for a long time. But it boils down to just like, if that person is not, if they don't get what you do, right? If they don't have the same vision that you do for your career and where you're headed and what you need to do to get there, like if they can't offer guidance because they don't really see what direction you should be heading in, that's a problem. And then also the other thing, Alrik, that maybe this sounds more pertinent to, if they don't have a roster that represents the things that you want to do, that's a challenge as well. Like my person was great, but like, you didn't go to him to book people like me. You went to him to book people who like lived more in the digital space. And so it was like, okay, well, if I was like a, gorgeous 17-year-old kid with a huge TikTok following, of course I'd go with him. But like, if I want like TV shows and stuff, that person isn't going to do it for me, basically.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the thing that I really need to do that I haven't done yet is I have to reach out to a bunch of her clients and interview them on her to see what they think of the experience, because I think that'll open up my eyes to what I'm getting myself into and if it's worth it or not,
Well, can I ask you what you feel like you would get out of it?
I don't know. Like, I think it would be something where I could run like opportunities by my manager, or hopefully I guess the real hope would be that after the alternate is done being shot, that she'll have another project for me to work on, and that maybe she can bring some scripts to me to potentially develop with like, some of her other clients, or maybe that she's got some money for a project that she has that she wants to hire me on to direct, I think those are the reasons why I would do it, but
I
maybe
mean,
that's
I've literally
not
never
really
heard of that happening for anyone.
But like, what's the downside, right? Like, would she be taking
10%, and then also,
but not of his freelance work that he's doing as a day job right now?
Not as my video production, not any of my shooting
So it doesn't take
or
any
editing.
of Alrik's livelihood. So like, why not? Unless she's, her clients say that she's crazy,
the other reason is that, and I think some people disagree with me, but every manager I've talked to has said that there's like a very strict no poaching policy. So, which is the reason that I ultimately decided to part ways, is that like, it's not cool for a manager, maybe a bigger, fancier manager, to say, "Hey, Matt, I really love your work. I'd love to sign you." That's not allowed.
So you think I'm like cutting myself off from a potentially more like a good manager if I sign with a not as connected manager, basically?
Liz, I feel like we just heard a story about how, like, you know, you told a story about how you met a producer who kind of just like wanted to take advantage of you, and that you learned
I didn't learn my lesson, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
But I don't think it sounds like the way you're describing her is that she's kind of angling to produce stuff, and like for her, it's like the more people that are actually writing and creating things and, you know, working on things, the higher chance that you'll bring her a project. Like,
right.
I think that's the misconception that I had for many, many, many years that, you know, I ultimately learned is that the relationship with the manager is not the direction you think it goes. You think that it's projects coming to the manager and then being funneled to you, but it's really the manager has a bunch of clients and you bring them a project and they show it to people.
Right. So if your manager can like walk over to, you know, I don't know, what's the ideal network for you? You've got a TV show pitch for FX, right? Like it's real weird and like a little funny and kind of offbeat. It's very Alrik. If they can get you in the door there, great.
Right.
But like, I bet your lawyer could, or you know what I mean? Like that's the thing.
Yeah, like I realize she's probably not going to open huge doors for me necessarily. It would more be like I have a manager. It elevates my status as a filmmaker because I have a manager, and then like, you know, I can run things by her, and then when I'm ready for a better manager, I just go with a better manager. But you're saying that that's not the
Alrik,
case.
if you need somebody to shit on your ideas, we're always there for you, buddy.
I think you shouldn't not think of them, at least at this point, as like a creative partner, like someone that you will like send a script to and they'll like be like, oh, this is great. I'm going to, you know, you should change this part. Like, you know, they have a formula of how much time they're going to spend versus how much money they're going to make.
And maybe it's true that you find that person, but like, do you get a sense that this person is going to be a great creative partner?
No.
Well, then,
no offense to her.
There you go. I mean, then there you go, right?
It would be mainly me trying to utilize her resources for my, you know, furthering my career.
Right. That and would you just listed off like you're skeptical of those resources, right?
Right. True.
But if you do understand that, if you know that, like, hey, if you sign with her and you say like, I want you to show the script to this actor or this producer or this company or get me a meeting with this person, if you know that that's kind of like all they are used for. And the other thing you can do with them is obviously like you send a deck or a script or something and you put them as the contact. So it's not you, it's them. Right. But I mean, I'm sure you've gotten emails. We get emails all the time, people pitching guests. They're like, I'm his manager and he is amazing. And you're like, you are him, you know, like,
right.
So if you care about that, then I'd go with the Liz, you know, answer, which is like, yeah, why not? You can always like leave them.
I was just talking to a good buddy of mine who's feeling really frustrated about the same sort of situation, but has a manager and doesn't feel like they're pitching him at all. And there is a tricky thing of like unsolicited material. Like that's the thing that managers are buffers for. Like if you're a manager and you send Alrik's script, then there's not the same sort of legal liabilities and challenges there, right? Like you can't send your stuff to, you know, FX yourself because they'd throw it away. They legally will not even look at it.
They can't look at it, right?
Yeah. So that is the catch. But like, they're not going to look at it unless they know your manager anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's what we just had Elaine Goldsmith Thomas on the podcast who produced Hustlers and all these other things. And she said, we asked her point blank, like, how can our listeners, if they have an idea for a movie, how can they get it to you? And she was like, honestly, it's like really difficult. Like, first of all, it has to come through like a manager and agent, you know, because she doesn't want to do the vetting. Right?
Yeah.
And
that's a great episode, by the way. Fantastic, guys.
Oh, thanks.
Just great. Liz, you should listen to it. I know you don't listen to things that you're not in, but you should really listen to
we talk about you at the last 10 seconds.
Stop
is
it.
all about you.
Yeah, she brought it up. She was like, I've seen this great movie. I should check it out.
I'm in. I'm listening tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. She was like, I was just me and 9 other people at this festival.
It was not.
I got to get the word out.
Because it was 5 per screening. But yes, she
Right.
seems nice.
Well, what it sounds like is I think what I really want is like a hungry up and coming manager who doesn't have a ton of clients, who really likes my work a lot and believes in me as an artist and wants to partner with me, and whose tastes and opinion I trust. Right? That's like my perfect manager.
So
But
the
you
way
could
you
also use like Jeff Allard, or are you working with George Rush?
Yeah. George
Like-
is my lawyer.
Like
Yeah.
those guys could probably do all the things that this person is offering you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would say the way that you find the person that you're talking about is like more just through interpersonal relationships. Like my first agent, I
Right.
knew for probably 2 years, and like would just send him stuff and we talk. We were just buddies. And then when the time was right, like when the alternate is out and you need somebody to help you field other deals, when it's getting into a lot of places and like you're talking about it, then they'll be like, oh hey Alrik, do you need any help with this? That's when it happens basically. So like I would hate for you to be shut off from good opportunities, and look, they may not come, right? Like that might not be the situation, but then then you probably don't need that manager in the first place, because Oren's point is right. Like
To sum it all up in 3 words,
Yeah.
move to LA.
Well, I think the message I'm taking away from this is that I already have people in my life who can help me do the things that this manager could help me do already. So, and then I don't even really need a manager right now because I'm not ready for one, to be honest. Like that's my honest opinion, is that if I was ready for a manager, then I would have one,
Right.
But I mean, maybe that's egotistical.
No,
or
no,
arrogant
that's
or whatever.
I think that's the opposite, actually. I think that's
Is
totally
it?
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And I think
you're saying you're not ready yet.
You
know what I
are
mean?
ready
That's fine.
for one, but you probably shouldn't waste your time with the wrong one.
Right. Okay. Because in my mind I thought like, who cares? I'll have a manager. It'll be great. I'll just, if I need to move on to another manager, it'll be easy. But I guess it sounds like it's harder to do that than I thought. Maybe.
Yeah, some people disagree with me, but like I said, like every manager that I've talked to has had a very serious no poaching attitude. So yeah.
Nice.
Well, awesome guys.
Yeah,
it was
this
great to
fun.
catch up.
We did it.
Absolutely. But this was fun, guys. Thanks so much
thank
for
you.
doing it
Yeah.
again, and another
you, guys.
crossover success.
We did it. I hope you have an existential freak out, because I'm about to.
Oh no.
I had one on the podcast, so you're fine.
Before we go, can we just one more time get the crowdfunding thing? And Liz, I don't think you ever told us how we can see Speed of Life.
So if you want to support an awesome indie sci-fi thriller, you can go to seedandspark.com/fun/the-alternate, and you can see the crowdfunding video that we made that I took a lot of time to put together, and a lot of effort, as you'll see when you watch it, to make it. I'm not an actor, so just gonna throw that out there. We also have a ton of update videos that we've released. We just released our teaser trailer when we crossed 30%, so you can watch the full 2-minute teaser trailer to the film. And we'd love your support. Contributions are great, but just sharing on social media is awesome too. And if Oren can do it, who hates crowdfunding apparently, then anyone can do it,
Test
right?
it. I think it's the dumbest thing ever.
I want to say, I just toot my own horn a little bit here. You're the third person who hates crowdfunding and who has never supported a crowdfunding campaign who has supported my crowdfunding campaign. And you know why? It's because of the video. I don't know about you, for my other 2 friends, they're like, they didn't support my last ones. They would never support crowdfunding ever, but they were so impressed with the video and the effort. They're like, okay, you get my $25 or whatever it was.
Well, I have supported crowdfunding projects before. One was out of guilt, because like literally everyone at the company I worked at had contributed except for me. It was very obvious. And I think I did one just because I really thought it. But yeah, I believe in you, and I just like.
Oh.
Have you guys seen Project Greenlight?
Yes.
show?
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
Like watching the journey to me is just as fun as like seeing how it ends up. So I'm on board.
Oh, thanks, man.
Aw.
So Liz,
And I
hit us.
believe in the project too and everything. But I mean that's why I did it, because I think it's fun to see what you're doing.
Nice. Sweet. The plan has worked.
Yeah. Okay, Liz, tell us about how we get to watch Speed of Life.
So I am incredibly proud of the film, and it will be released in January 10th, 2020, by Giant Pictures. And if anyone wants to see it before then, we'll be doing a 30-day exclusive on a blockchain platform, actually, with Breaker in December.
Oh, wow.
So, and also we're doing a bunch of
Nice.
one-night theatrical events, and if you want it in your town, I'll just send you a Vimeo link, or you can let me know the movie theater you go to, and I'll talk to them. So just email me.
And can we see the trailer?
Liz at lizmanischel@gmail.com.
That's it. No, the trailer won't be out until pre-sales go up. So trailer is I'm not cutting more than one trailer. I'm a cheap lady, so we're
I
saving
like
that.
the trailer you sent me. That was good.
Thank you. I'm really proud of it.
Guys, if you're either new to our podcast or Alrik and Liz's podcast, then you should check out Making Movies is Hard and Just Shoot It.
Yeah.
Because
Just Shoot It's my favorite podcast. You took over Script Notes. I stopped listening to Script Notes and only listened to you guys. And then just in the last 2 months, I started listening to Script Notes as well. But
they're also
yeah.
great.
They
If you need
are
a list
great.
of podcasts, email me at justshootitpod@gmail.com.
But if you want to learn about directing, Just Shoot It. That's the place to be. So
That's our conversation with Alrik and Liz. I feel like I learned a lot. What about you, Oren?
Not really. I'm just kidding. Yeah, of course. They're always so fun to talk to, and they have, really differing perspectives on everything, which I love, which is actually what some people told me they like about you and me.
Oh, yeah, that's
They're
true.
like-
I'm right and you're wrong. I get it.
They said something like that.
Good. You should introduce me to your friends more, Oren.
Yeah. Cool. Well, if you want to hear more about this episode and the show, go to justshootitpodcast.com. You can find us across all social media at justshootitpod. I'm on Instagram at okaplan.
And I'm at Mr. Madeline. This episode was edited by Sarah Weirda. It was produced by Madeline Rosewat.
And our webmaster is Ewan Williams.
And the outro music you're listening to right now was provided by the Free Music Archive and the artist Jazar. Additional music was provided by MusicBed.